pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I'm happy to see so many people out on this cold night. Let's start with our roll call. Tree Scott is here. Butch Cushing.
Present.
Tom McLaughlin.
Present.
Okay, and our new member, David Kent, is excused. And I'm sad to say we have a retirement from Howard Burnham. I'd like to thank Howard for his many years of faithful service to the town. He's been around making a lot of decisions for a long time, and we will miss him. We wish him the best of luck. Okay, so let's look at our minutes from 11/21/17. I noticed one thing on the second page that I'd like to add, Mr. Murphy. In the middle of the bullets under facts and findings, where it says business will occur off-site, I just wanted to insert after business, business which involves tree removal but not logging will occur off-site. I know people made that point several times.
Okay, that was mostly in reference to the fact that logs could come back to the property, but
right,
he's
but
assured they weren't.
Logging.
Yes,
that's not what their business is. I just wanted to clarify that. And other than that, I didn't see anything.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, put Tom and Butch.
Hey, we're going to say something about doing in pass.
Oh, please.
I'd like to say that I'm really proud of my town. I went to that meeting where they voted a new rule, just trying to stop Northern Pass, and it turned out that the next day the state voted it down, and it's all because of all the efforts from a lot of people. Andy Schneider's one. There's 100 people that really leaned into that, and boy, it's really nice to see the residents get their way for change.
Right, it's nice to see when activism
I really want to
works.
congratulate the town and all the people that participated. Brian went and spoke at the meetings down there. It was just really very warm in your heart to see something come out right.
Great. Okay, we are here for a public hearing. I'd just like to explain something before I open them up for the two applications. We had two applications this evening and one withdrew. Unfortunately, as you notice, we have three members here this evening. We had a recent retirement due to health problems of one of our members, and we have another member that we found. Dave Kent will be joining the board, but he's away for the month of February. So we're in the market for zoning board volunteers and alternates. So please keep that in mind if anybody is thinking that that would be an interesting thing to do. We need members. So the applicant has chosen to go forward with three members this evening. Yes?
please note that the applicant that withdrew is continuing at the next meeting, which is a date certain.
Right, so technically he's continued, and he will, the other application will be at our next meeting, hopefully with our 4 board members. The problem that occurs with the zoning board is we need to have 3 members to vote in favor of any application. So if we have less than our full board, we could get into a problem. If we have 4 members, it could be 2 and 2, and that's a tie, and that means the application fails. So it's tougher when we don't have a full board, but unfortunately we haven't been able to get a full complement of members.
So it has to have 5 members, so
Technically,
any final vote
5.
has to have 3.
Yeah. So
the
any
majority of the 5.
Exactly.
And so this has to be unanimous if we're going to vote.
Right. So that's the trick, and you know, gamble could win either way. So I just like to mention that to applicants when we don't have our full board here. So we have an application number 108-107 for a special exception, and I'd like to open the public hearing on that. So I'd like to ask the presenters to come forward. Hi there. Okay, sure, thank you. So this is Eric Newman.
Evening, board members. Eric Newman. I'm an attorney with Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell from Concord. I'm here on behalf of New Cape Ventures, LLC, which is the owner of lots 107 and 154. They are located in the SFR zone. I'm joined by Ed Holbert, who's a principal and also a New Hampshire resident, and he may assist me to the extent you have any questions that I can't speak to. We are requesting a special exception pursuant to Article 3, Section 304, to permit the property to be redeveloped as a two-family residence. We do certainly recognize and appreciate you pointing out that that decision would require unanimous approval from the board members here tonight. But we do believe this plan makes a very compelling argument to support it. It would have tremendous benefits to the immediate neighborhood as well as the broader community. By way of introduction, it would enhance the value of the neighborhood by renovating a dilapidated building, one that's gone through foreclosure, and a vacant lot to the rear, both of which are eyesores. It would preserve and enhance green space without sacrificing property tax payments, because the open lot to the rear would not be dedicated for conservation. It would continue to be a tax-paying parcel, or the area associated with it would, at least, because the plan would entail the merger of these two lots if it was approved. It'll create energy efficient and moderately affordable housing to serve the middle income needs of the professionals who work in this area. It won't stress town services. What we're proposing, again, is to renovate the existing structure to accommodate 2 dwelling units, as compared to the alternate plan of development, which would be to simply have 2 freestanding single families on each of the 2 lots at issue here. And then additionally, it will put local contractors to work. The applicant has experience with similar redevelopments in New Hampshire. That is their practice, to use local tradespeople. I think he's supplied some pictures of the work they've done, which I think speaks for itself. It's of high quality, it's attractive, and that's precisely what they would accomplish with this project. The proposal complements the character of the neighborhood, and that's key, I think. While the zoning ordinance requires a special exception for this 2-family use, the immediate neighborhood really is predominantly multifamily and institutional uses. And in fact, only one of the 6 direct abutters to these 2 lots is a single-family residence. And that property owner has submitted a letter in support of this application, along with 3 of the other direct abutters. It's no surprise then that, as I just mentioned, the proposal does enjoy the support of the direct abutters.
Excuse me, Mr. Newman.
Yes.
Tom had a question?
Where were those letters to
The letters.
support from the, oh, that was these here?
Yes.
You just received these. These are the letters.
Yes, I think they were just submitted to Brian earlier today.
Yes.
These are from 4 butters, and you mentioned
I would have
6 of them.
standing to oppose the special exception. Oh, okay. Contrary, one of my support application. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so of the 6 direct abutters, the one single-family residence is parcel 108 at 54 Highland Street, which is one of the individuals who submitted the letter there. Yes. We've submitted the written application, and I'd be happy to review the individual criteria by reading those statements into the record, and I think that would give you an opportunity to perhaps raise any questions as we go through each of the points. Is that a...
Okay, that sounds good. I would just like to start out by clarifying, when I went through the information that was submitted, I have different accounts of the size of the properties.
Okay.
So could we just clarify what size of the 2 lots at this?
Sure. And one of the lots, and perhaps this is part of the question you're speaking to, one of the lots was recently adjusted via lot line adjustment with the property to the west.
Okay.
So lot 154, which is the parcel to the rear, the adjusted area is 0.229 acres.
Okay.
and lot 107 with the frontage on Highland Street is .278 acres.
Wait a minute, so that's like 2 less than quarter acres. Oh no, one's just a little more than a quarter. And what's the requirement, Brian, for a 2 single families? Isn't it, what?
It goes to the
Quarter acre lot
square
for-
footage requirement, but an in-town lot is a half an acre.
It's a half an acre?
Yes.
But the 2 of these don't add up to a half an acre. 0.27 and 0.22.
.229.
278 and 229, they do.
Yeah, 2.7, they add up to, right, 0.0?
No, it's what, 7,
It adds up to .509.
yeah, there we go.
0.509? Okay, good.
507, right? 0.278.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't read my own writing.
507, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that's what, it had different places on the papers submitted that had different figures, so I wondered how did it change?
Just on a question, how long are these lines along Emerson? The frontage line, like on Emerson?
On Emerson,
100 feet, a quarter acre is like, 20, is like 100 by 100, right? So this must be like about 125 feet or 100.
yeah, so the lot 107, again, the one that has the frontage on Highland Street, has 150 feet of frontage on Emerson.
On
On
Emerson.
Emerson.
Yes, and the one to the rear, lot 154, has 96.64 feet of frontage.
Okay, great, thank you. So what must be-
Okay, so I'll proceed through the criteria if that sounds good.
Sounds good.
The first one is explain how the specific site is an appropriate location and adequate size for the use. We discussed that somewhat in my introduction, but we responded, the proposal presents a unique opportunity for the town and surrounding neighborhood to preserve and improve existing open space and enhance the appearance of a dilapidated structure and lot. Applicant intends to combine Lot 107, which hosts a deteriorated single family, with Lot 154, which comprises a vacant lot which abuts 107 to the north and rear, to achieve the .5 acre lot size requirement for a 2-family served by municipal sewer in the SFR zone. The remodeling of the existing single-family structure to support 2 dwelling units will not expand the building footprint, but will significantly improve its appearance. The open space encompassing Lot 154 will be enhanced by applicant's plan to stump that lot, stabilize the soils and with grass and add landscaping. Lot 107 has ample off-street parking to support a 2-family use with space for at least 6 vehicles, exceeding the 4 spaces that are required. The proposed 2-family use is consistent with and appropriate for the surrounding area, which is primarily multifamily with a mixture of single-family and institutional uses, and will preserve the open space embodied by Lot 154. This plan of redevelopment is better suited to the lots than hosting a single-family house on each lot, which is otherwise a permitted use owing to their vested rights as to minimum lot size, should the special exception be denied. Any questions on that point? Secondly, explain how the use as developed will not adversely affect the character of the area in which the proposed use will be located. Currently, 5 of the 6 direct abutters are multifamily or institutional. And as I mentioned, the one single-family direct abutter has indicated their support for the proposal. The broader neighborhood is primarily multifamily. In remodeling the existing structure from single-family to 2-family, the aesthetic appearance will be improved with choices made with deference to the trends within the surrounding area, and the Lot 154 open space will be beautified. Applicant has a demonstrated history of improving the properties it redevelops and contributing to the enhancement of the surrounding area, as I think those photos demonstrate. Any questions on that point?
No.
Third, explain how there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. The proposed use is in harmony with the surrounding community, and the premises has ample off-street parking to support 2 dwelling units. Since the existing structure will not be expanded, the sizable yard on 107 will be preserved, in addition to preserving Lot 154 as open space. Landscaping and building appearance will be improved in conjunction with the building remodel. Next, I had explained the historic pedestrian and vehicular entry and exit points on the lot will also be preserved, which are set back safely from both abutting street intersections and the abutting lot structures and their respective pedestrian and vehicular entry and exit locations. I wanted to just mention that the driveway entrance, as the plan has been further refined, may actually shift slightly to the north, which brings it further away from the intersection of Emerson and Highland. So it may not stay exactly where the curb cut is today, but it would be in a similar location and would not have an impact to those types of safety considerations. Highland Street is presently an arterial roadway of sorts with other multifamily and institutional users, including Spear Memorial Hospital, and therefore the vehicular use attributed to the one additional dwelling unit will not represent a meaningful change or increase. Any questions I can answer on that point?
No.
Next, explain how the use will not place excessive or undue burden on town services and facilities. The premises are served by municipal water and sewer, and therefore the increase attributable to one additional dwelling unit will not overload any public or private water, drainage, or sewer system, or any other municipal system. Increasing the number of dwelling units from 1 to 2 will not create excessive demand for municipal, police, fire protection, or solid waste disposal services. The proposal promotes community goals by supplying needed housing for medical students, educators, and other neighborhood demographics that are the likely rental pool, and is less likely to be occupied by persons with school-aged children, lessening the demand on schools in comparison to 2 single-family homes, which might otherwise be supported by the lots. I also pointed out the ZBA has approved similar special exceptions for conversion of single-family to 2-family in recent years, including by an abutter at 5 Emerson Street in 2014. Any questions on that point?
No.
And then lastly, explain how there would be no significant effect resulting from such use upon public health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood in which the use would be located. To which we responded, the proposal will improve the general welfare of the neighborhood by enhancing a home and vacant lot which are presently an eyesore. Public services will not experience a meaningful increase in demand, nor will there be any significant increase in stormwater runoff onto adjacent property or streets, because the existing single-family structure will be converted into 2 units without altering or enlarging the building footprint.
Any questions, Tom?
Yeah, you know, we got the diagram in front of us with with the 3 bedrooms on each floor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, when you see an ad on, you know, Craig's something for a 3-bedroom house, you expect it's gonna have families and kids. And you say that you're not aiming that way with your marketing, that you're hoping to do something different than that. Because that's what you get, you know, 2 kids.
Well, the point I was making was in comparison to what would be permitted as of right, which would be 2 single-family homes, there's certainly not an increased likelihood that you'd have families in this configuration as compared to that. But I also think the type and quality of improvements and investments that the applicant plans to make in this building may translate into you know, a rent at a rate that is better suited to some of the professionals working in the neighborhood. But obviously we can't predict entirely, or we certainly can't exclude certain demographics.
But then they're gonna have 3, okay. There's one other question I have just quickly. That the vehicle use, you feel that the vehicle use attributed to a dwelling unit will not represent, but you're really going, this was a 4-bedroom house before and you want to go to 6 bedrooms.
Again, I guess I should have stated that observation again more as in comparison to what would otherwise could be developed on these 2 lots.
This idea about a 2-family, 2 single families would have more traffic than this one.
Or it wouldn't represent an increase or over that alternative.
Okay, great, thank you.
Butch, do you have any
I don't have anything.
questions?
No.
On the application?
And is there anything you wanted to add?
Okay, well, thank you. I will see if we have any questions for you after we hear from the public, okay?
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I will open the public hearing on the application, and I'd ask if there's anybody here who would like to speak in favor of the application. Yes, sir, please identify yourself.
I'm Woody Miller, a resident of Plymouth, and I am in favor, and I think the town should approve this. I think it's a responsible use for the property in keeping with the goals of the land use regulations of not creating more use of space, creating sprawl. This is a responsible use. It's consistent with the character of the neighborhood, of the surrounding properties, and I believe it is a good decision for the town and the town's residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody who has neutral comments? And then I'll go to anybody who is opposed to the application that would like to speak. Frank?
Well, my comment is neutral. Frank Miller, I'd like to speak in favor of granting a special exception. I believe this meets the criteria of our special exception evaluation criteria, and I believe it would be a benefit to the people of the town of Plymouth and the residents on Highland Street, and I think I'd like to recommend approval.
Okay, thanks, Frank. That's fine. So, all right, did we see anybody who would like to speak in opposition? Janice?
Janice Nielsen, 11 Rogers Street, Plymouth. We were here a few months ago, and I'm a little confused about the proceedings because I thought that we had defeated the request for the conjoinment of two properties at that time. The specific reason that we defeated those was because we did not want the unit to turn into a multifamily dwelling. The reason that we don't want that is because we live on Rogers Street and Emerson Street, and those are primarily single-family dwellings, and we are already dealing with the influx of other college housing in the area, and that has caused a decrease in our quality of life on a regular basis. Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturday nights, 2 o'clock in the morning, that kind of thing, kids walking home. I agree that it's wonderful that the house will be renovated, and I think that a wonderfully renovated house is terrific. I don't agree that the two-family dwelling as proposed is any different from the one that we saw earlier, which includes 3 bedrooms and no living space. That's not a family. That's an sort of a suite kind of a situation for a college situation, and I don't think that most families would want to live in a place that had 3 bedrooms and a kitchen and no living room. So I have to feel that the sincerity of the architects in this situation and the builder and the renovator might be in question here as to the target audience for the rentals. In the area, it is true that the abutters are primarily multifamily, but if you look carefully at their apartments and their dwelling spaces, those are full-fledged apartments. They are complete with full kitchens, full living rooms. They do have families and they do have some students. We rarely hear from them. They tend to be on the Highland Street side of things, and they choose that area, I think, because it is a more stable area to live. It is not a really confined area of an apartment, which I think that, from what I understand of the drawings, this would be. Secondly, we already have some issues with houses that are a little bit out of compliance on Emerson Street that are difficult to get back into compliance. We don't really want to have 6 additional cars down Emerson Street, which is another access for them, right? So I would say that all of us came out the first time in order to prevent this from becoming a 2-family dwelling unit, because it looked very much as though that was the intent, that the 3 bedrooms, no living space, did not look to us as it was really a family kind of thing. I disagree with Mr. Miller in that we feel, living where we live, that 2 family dwellings would be better for the neighborhood. We would love to have families and children playing on the streets. We would love to have that as opposed to having cars, loud music, parties, things like that. So I disagree in the terms of quality of life for that neighborhood, that this type of impact would be more beneficial than having, in fact, 2 single-family dwelling units. And once again, should we look at the architectural drawings, I don't have full trust that the adjacent lot would be developed to be something that would be pleasing to the environment. I just can't trust that right now. So I would be strongly opposed to this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Janice.
I'd just like to note that the drawing does indicate living space.
Right, I was going to say, Janet, would you like to see the diagram? It shows a living space in the...
So that's different from the last
It's different from the
proposal?
last one?
Okay. The last one did not have any living space.
Okay.
Oh, it's still the kitchen.
Well, it's got your kitchen and
Well,
the kitchen.
it's still just the kitchen.
The cabinets come out,
There's not really a living room.
Right,
well,
okay.
Per se.
he's calling it a living room.
Okay, and also, I just wanted to explain, the first time the applicant had asked for a variance, which involved the size of the lot, and that's why that was denied. So without the variance, he needed bigger, he didn't have the space, and apparently there's been an adjustment with his neighbors of lot lines so that they have the requisite space under our ordinance. Okay. Right, right. So, okay, well, thank you. Is there, Kate, is this Hedberg?
Hi, Katie Hedberg, 18 Emerson Street. Again, I was also here in the summer, and I want to commend the beautiful outside of that house. It really looks lovely. I will speak to the fact that I've lived in Plymouth for 21 years, and all of the points you made really look towards the hospital and not towards the neighborhood. From that street down Emerson Street, down to the neighborhoods behind there with all the trees now gone, it is a direct entryway to the back neighborhood, to Randolph Street, Batchelder, all that whole neighborhood. So my concerns are the fact that these most likely would be rented to students and not professionals from the hospital. I've been affiliated in some manner or another with the hospital for 21 years, and it's a tiny hospital. They have an occasional medical student or an occasional temporary physician coming through, and this would not be the place that they would want to be housed. It just would not. If we look at having 2 3-bedroom apartments by our town statute, there would be 3 people on each in each dwelling if it's 3 unrelated people. However, experience has shown us that many of these rentals, there are more people in those bedrooms than are either on the lease or even that the landlord might know about. There are, if you look down our street at some of the properties that have rentals, there are routinely 5, 6 or more cars. So my concern is the quality of life on our street. I'm so happy your neighbor gave you a letter that he was in favor of it, but to be honest, he has not lived here through the time of spring fling, the nice weather. I have had college students urinating in my bushes in the middle of the day with the traffic up and down. You're right, the house right next to you, The yellow one, which is, I don't remember that number, that is full of college students, and it has not made my life or my neighborhood any better. My hope is that I could age in place in my home. I have a home with a bedroom on the first floor that, in my hopes, I can stay there. If the house has 12 college students, which it could have, it will not make my quality of life any better. It will make it much worse. We have had a neighborhood that was full of children at one time. Our neighborhood, they're mostly young adults, and and most of us have opted to stay there. The neighborhood behind it, that's not true of Butter, as you can see some of these people in the audience, it's full of children. And the experience from the parties at the rental property next door to the open lot, they're loud, they're out back, and the noise goes right through to that back neighborhood. A green area is nice, but it is rife for parties. And we've seen it in our neighborhood, and we've seen it in other neighborhoods in town. So I'm going to speak against this. I think that it's not going to improve the quality of life. I think that the renters will not be professionals, will not be medical students. They will be students, and I believe they will be PSU students. It's a great income, but it's a detriment to me and my family. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Yes, sir.
So, my name is Matt Smith, and I'm a resident of Plymouth. I live on Randolph Street, which is just behind Emerson, and I'll keep it short. I think that even in my short time here, I've been here about 5 years, there's already been good family residential areas are becoming a little bit of a scarcity in Plymouth. You've already seen in Merrill Street, a bunch of houses have gone down to student housing, and student housing is not a scarcity. So I strongly, it seems like it's a guise to maximize income. This resident, I don't think the intent is families eventually, because who's going to be the ones knocking on the doors? It's going to be students. And I think if you look at the long-term future of Plymouth, and I think that's what the intention of your guys' board is to do, you probably want to keep what is scarce, preserve what is scarce, and so that's my feeling.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jason Duchette. I live on 1 Randolph Street. We've been there for about 6 months. But prior to that, we lived on 8 Randolph Street. We owned the house there, right next to the Smiths. So we love the neighborhood. We love the town of Plymouth. My wife grew up and lived here all her life. So some of my questions, what are we defining as a professional? Somebody that works at the hospital? We can name college kids that are considered professionals. I understand that you want to maximize your income, which any business person would want to do. And the question is, how do we enforce that it's only professionals? Because if you can't rent out an apartment, you're going to take the first person that shows up. You're not going to just leave a place empty. And so there's 6 bedrooms total. So that means up to 6 cars potentially. And you said a 4-lot parking lot.
No,
You should tell him to address you.
There's ample space for at least 6. In fact, the concept plan shows 7, and it's all off-street.
Yeah, Jason, just if you have a question, just go through me, okay? It's okay.
Sorry.
So people can hear.
Because also, if you look at some of the other college housings, where I'm assuming they would have enough parking, like on Main Street, there's one that I drive by every day before I go to work that the last car parked in there, there's no way they're getting out. So they just pack them full, and I can just picture that happening. Mrs. Hedberg was talking about the house that's right next door to it that has parties and stuff. And actually on both sides of her, she has two. And when we lived at 8 Randolph Street, I actually ended up having to call the cops one day because the party was getting so loud on a Saturday afternoon that you could hear the swearing and screaming. I have 3 children, 10, 8, and 5, and they don't need to be a part of that. They are still young. Like to keep them as young as possible for as long as I can. Talk about on-the-road parking. There isn't really enough parking on Emerson Street because you put a car anywhere there, you drive down there now on either side of the road, it's no longer a 2-lane road. It's a 1-lane road because of the snow and everything else and how rough that road is anyway. It does look nice with some of the dead trees gone. I won't disagree, and outside the building looks great. But you can see from our house to their yard now without any question. It's starting to be clear cut. And one of the reasons why we moved all the way up there was because there was more privacy. Where on 8 Randolph, we were wide open to everybody. We liked the idea of privacy and still be able to be in town. We don't want to live outside of town and not be able to walk downtown or things like that. So I really think this is just going to hurt the neighborhood. And with the most recent stuff, the last 2 or 3 years with the college, on-campus and off-campus issues, police having to be called to parties at 2 o'clock in the morning to break them up because there's fights. There's been stabbings a couple of years ago. Just recently, there was a guy trying to get into homes that were just college-based buildings, had nothing to do with residents. So I think it's just creating more issues going towards the families that actually live here and want to stay here. And even 2 of my children have said they wanted to go to PSU. So we love that it's a college town. I have my master's degree from there. My wife has her master's degree from there. So we love the college here, but there's got to be parameters. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Is there anyone else who'd like to? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jessie Marinowski, and I live on 7 Randolph Street, which is the backyard neighborhood to Emerson Street. I think one important thing that has not been mentioned is that Emerson Street is one of 2 major thoroughfares for the families living on Randolph, down on Merrill, up Batchelder to Buckland. We don't know what we call ourselves, but that neighborhood. That is one of the major thoroughfares getting into that neighborhood. So all of our children ride in our cars, we drive by there. Due to the nature of my position of where I work in Plymouth, I can, off the top of my head, I sat in my seat and I can name 16 families just from the top of my head within a 2.5 block of that whole back region that have kids 14 and younger. And my own child, who years ago was fighting for her life, I remember her at age 6 having to close. She was complaining because she couldn't sleep at 2 in the morning in a hot, brutally hot summer because of the noise. And that was coming from the top of Emerson Street. I don't have the address, but there's some college housing there. My point is there's a lot of families with young children, and we love the neighborhood. And I feel like because of the layout and what the proposal is for the 6 residents and the potential for those being students, that I'm opposed to this idea. And I think that's it. I had one more point, but I lost it.
Okay. Well,
Thanks.
thank you very much. All right, is there anybody else? Any comments? Yes?
My name is Brooke Wakefield. I'm at 72 Highland Street. So this is 4 doors down towards Hannaford. And I have 2 children. We moved to that house and neighborhood because we love being close to downtown. We love being close to the school. We love our neighbors, all the people behind us in Buckland and Randolph. We also like our neighbors on Highland. We chose to live there, and we really, really love it, and we want to keep it that way, and invite more families to live in our neighborhood. Right now, as you get closer to where I am, you know, you've got the school there, the neighborhood behind us, and it's getting close to the school. Well, these, you know, multi-family rentals are starting to kind of encroach upon that, and I think there is a limit. And I don't think it's going to be helping families, and I don't think it's, because of that, I don't think it's be helping Plymouth. So I definitely oppose this.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak? And I'm going to close the public hearing.
If I could respond to it.
Sure, we'll let you respond, Mr. Newman.
Thank you.
Okay. And if anybody on the board would like to ask any questions or comments with Mr. Newman, that will, okay, now's the time.
So I certainly appreciate the comments from everyone who spoke, and you know, myself and applicant are sympathetic to some of the challenges that this type of a community presents, but I think it is unfair to essentially paint this project with the sins of perhaps some others. The applicant is not a property flipper. Their business model is not doing these types of projects in college communities. We've supplied some pictures and information on projects that they've done in Hebron and in Bristol. High quality renovation, redevelopment. They plan to continue to own this, and I expect they will be very selective and discerning in who they choose to rent to. It would be very much not in their interest to rent to the type of people that would be causing some of the problems that many of you have experienced. It creates problems with code enforcement, creates tensions with neighbors. All of that consumes time, energy, and money. Those are not wise business decisions. So first and foremost, what would be driving the type of tenant that would likely occupy this is someone who's not going to cause those types of problems. Now, the applicant has obligations under FHA, and we have equal protection measures under our state and federal constitution, so we can't write into the deed who gets to live here. But I can communicate to everyone that that is how they would approach that type of decision. In terms of the parking concerns, the parking would be off-street. There's ample space on the lot that has the frontage on Highland to have 6 or perhaps 7 spaces. So I don't see it creating problems for the existing on-street parking situation. In terms of the lot and the concern with that it would be a location that, I'm speaking to the back lot that would be preserved as open space, that would become a location for parties. Again, you know, that's the last thing that the applicant would want to see there. That's tremendous liability, and that simply would, you know, they'd be the first person to call the police and say something's going on here. I think the applicant would be amenable to conditions imposed were you inclined to grant the special exception in terms of some of the details of how the landscaping would be redone. I explained what their intention would be, to take down the dead trees that are there, remove that, stump them, stabilize it, you know, seed it. If there are specific landscaping improvements that the board thinks would improve upon that plan, I think we'd welcome that input and be happy to have that be a condition of the approval. If it could be designed in ways that you think would cut down on likelihood in terms of what demographic would be using that open space, we'll entertain that too. I mean, we really view that as an asset for this neighborhood, for this community, not a liability. The concern that these are going to be just boarding house style configurations, I think the building plans show that that's simply not the case. It has a very good sized living room. I think roughly, you said 35 by 20 feet. The ordinance requires, has a maximum of 3 unrelated persons. If that were violated, again, it's not something the applicant would do because it creates problems for their insurance coverage. It creates problems in a number of respects, but it would be subject to code enforcement. So there is a means to make sure the town already has the ability to ensure that that does not happen and to enforce it. But again, given the investment that this applicant intends to make into this redevelopment plan, there's no way they're going to stack up college students in there. They would be proposing a very different type of redevelopment if that were the end game here. And I think those are the points I wanted to make in response.
Okay, thank you. Tom, did you have any questions or comments?
No, well said, thank you.
What?
One of the comments I have, we've seen this over and over again. People come in with all these promises. And you mean well, there's no question about it. I feel that you guys are putting your best foot forward and meaning well. But somewhere along your life, something might change. You'll be forced to sell. And if you do, I can almost guarantee you who will pick it up after this has been developed this way. So we've seen it happen over and over again as citizens in the town. So I just wanted to make that comment.
I think it's a fair comment. I think the fact that the zoning ordinance recognizes the ability to approve this by special exception is an acknowledgement that this type of use, when it's done responsibly, is an appropriate use within this zoning district. So I'm sympathetic to that point and the concerns that are expressed. Obviously, we can't, I don't think that there's an ability to put any guarantees in place that would preclude what you're saying in the future. But I think your job in considering this request is to think about it in terms of what the zoning ordinance intends and make a determination of whether we have put together an application that satisfies those criteria, and I do believe that we have.
And as you notice, some of the people have spoken how our neighborhoods are a premium now. There used to be, I can count maybe 3 neighborhoods now, actually neighborhoods. So the town is, and what we have, as they've spoken, is something they want to preserve.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. I understand that. But I do think this district was intended to accommodate a mixture of uses. I think there's always a need in communities, especially a community such as this, for a variety of different housing types. And I think this location is suitable for the multifamily. I agree that the further you go to the north and east and to some extent to the west, there's a greater density of single family. And the same application in one of those locations may be inappropriate. But I do believe it's appropriate for this one.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Newman.
Thank you.
All right, do we need to have a discussion before, or do you want to go to the criteria? Okay. All right, we'll just go to the criteria for special exceptions. Number one.
To close the public hearing.
I'm sorry? I did close the public hearing. I think I did. I thought I did.
Started to.
All right, number one, the proposed use shall be only those allowed in the ordinance by special exception. Tom, start with you. That is.
Yeah, wait, I was just gonna get those in front of me. Brian already gave us that, right, in the original application?
You got it in your materials from home.
Oh, okay.
Do you have that?
Yeah.
So you can read.
I didn't print one for myself.
Okay,
It's
that's
on
right, just
page
read it
2.
again. I can do that.
Is it on page 2? Mine's on page 2. Here's another one. So use one.
Oh, great. Oh, yes, I did see that. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so the proposed use shall be only those allowed in the ordinance by special exception.
Well, that is allowed by special exception.
Yes, that's true, under section 304, page 16 of our zoning ordinance. Which?
True.
True, okay. Number 2, the specific site is an appropriate location and of adequate size for the use.
I don't think that's true. That he says he's not stacking them up, but boy, you look at there's three over three. It's, that's very crowded, and that's a very nice corner piece, and it's very public where that is. Of course, I guess every place is public, but I'd vote false on that.
Okay. I also would, do not believe that this location is of adequate size to increase the use to a two-family home, even with the lot adjustment.
I'm saying false also, and I think that because of the intersection there of Highland and Emerson, it's a very busy corner. And as some people have spoken, it's a lot of traffic.
Okay. All right, number 3, the use as developed will not adversely affect the character of the area in which the proposed use will be located.
I think that's false too. I mean, these people that show up here, they live there. This is an out-of-town landlord, not prejudice against that, we have a lot of them. But these people, it's just like the Northern Pass thing. These people all stood up and they're really trying to protect their neighborhood, and I feel that we've seen young families here tonight. That's, I haven't seen those people turn out before.
Okay, so you say false. I also believe this is false because it's a buffer property, and I know it's always hard when somebody's on that corner of two different zones, but again, through experience, we've seen happen over and over in Plymouth with these buffer properties on the corner. Once the buffer goes, then the whole neighborhood starts going down like dominoes. So because this is one of the very few actual neighborhoods left in our town, I definitely feel that it would change the character, and I think it should be preserved as one of our very few inviolate neighborhoods.
I say false.
Okay. All right, number 4, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
Probably not. I mean, that's not, I'd vote true.
Okay, you vote true, Tom. I vote, I can't say that that is true without, and if there were an increase of upwards of 6 cars added to that intersection, so I would say false.
I'm saying false too, just because of previously what I said about how busy that corner is.
Okay, the intersection. All right. Number 5, the use will not place excessive or undue burden on town services and facilities.
True. I think that, you know,
Tom?
the sewers aren't going to back up and the police aren't going to all quit.
Okay, I would say false. I just can't say that's true with any ascertaining, any certainty, having lived on Russell Street for 28 years. So, Butch?
I'll say false also.
Okay. There would be no significant effect resulting from such use upon the public health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood in which the use would be located.
I'd say that's false.
Okay, can we articulate why?
Just because it is gonna, the density goes up and they plan to have, you know, 2 families, six rooms from where there's now 4, right?
Right. Okay, I would agree that I would vote false on that criteria as, again, being a buffer property. Once, I think once that goes, then the prospect of having many more areas where mischief could take place. So we've seen this happen in Plymouth very, very often.
And I'm saying false.
Okay. All right, so I would...
Take a motion.
Okay.
Take a motion to deny the application.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Denied. Okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Just like to say I appreciate the people that came out and also the people that wrote letters in support of the application. It's good for us to hear from as many people as possible in making our decisions. So let me find our agenda.
What's this fancy thing, Brian? What's this fancy thing?
What's that? Oh, that's your calendar.
Oh, God, how many times do I have to show up here every week?
We're having more meetings, Tom.
When you're
More
summoned.
meetings?
You needed something to do.
When did that vote happen?
No, it's got them all on there.
Oh, it does, huh? Oh, that's very nice.
So when you join up with the planning board again, you know what meetings those are.
Right. We're going to chase away the members that we have.
Oh, look at this. This is great, Brian. Right on through. Nice organization. Okay. What else you got, Patrice?
All right, we just have to go, here, I'm just in it. Oh, okay, could I just ask if we're gonna talk to, go out in the hallway, because we still have some, it's okay. We just have to move out a little, thank you. Okay. All right, so we have, unfinished business?
We finish it all here every
Okay,
time.
finished. All right, new business. New edition of New Hampshire planning use?
No, you can't.
Oh, this is an old one. No, this is February 6th. No, we have our, I think we have an up-to-date
I
one.
have the 24th annual spring planning and zoning conference.
Oh, that's what
online.
you handed out, okay. And then we just wanted to make sure that, again, we put a plea out for anybody listening if you feel that you could be helpful and sit on the board to help us make decisions. We are in need of alternates, and we are happy to train anybody who's willing to serve.
No, I agree with what you said about the buffer, Madam Chair. That property is backed by two-family homes, so it's no longer property.
What do you mean?
It's directly behind, on both sides of the street of Emerson, are two-family homes leading to the neighborhood. So
Well, it used to, I mean, it's technically single-family zone.
one single family, but there's a two-family here, there's a two-family here, and
Is
there's a
the one
two-family
that-
here. So if you're blocking this, ain't no buffer anymore.
It's a single family next door to it though, right on Highland Street?
On Highland,
Yeah.
I'm flanking down Emerson Street.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
down
it's got two
Emerson.
more doubles, two
That's
more
fine.
two families.
That's
Right.
just, it's a terminology
Well,
thing.
you know,
like we
it's
discussed
just
earlier.
Right,
that-
yeah,
that-
I know, and it also has a different definition, a buffer, what a
I
buffer
guess we should
But,
let
I
is,
mean,
but,
to raise that point
that,
when it's incorrect on the face of it was all.
yeah.
But I understand what
well,
you're saying.
my
The
term is
intent.
not the technical buffer, but we've seen it on the corner of, what is it, on Pleasant Street, and that corner property that led to the whole Garland
Oh,
Street.
that was a mess, that gray house on the corner?
Yeah, that big,
Oh,
yeah, the
geez.
big house.
Did
Well,
go
that one,
through
the one across
terrible-
from it, but multiple times, it's that one key property that once that goes, then they're like dominoes,
Say they
and
turn
that's
into a
what happened
nightmare. You know how it
in
is.
Pleasant and Russell, so. Anyway, okay, do we have no other business, so why don't we, I would call to adjourn,
Make a motion adjourn.
okay?
Oh, okay, great.
All in favor?
Me.
Aye. Adjourned.
Very good.